Tim Roble, and this is Garage Customs. On today's episode, we're going to focus on Everlast 255 EXT TIG machine. I'm going to be taking you through some setup and parameters on DC pulse. Same settings that I would use in my shop daily, and the same settings that I would use to teach a new student on how to weld. Some of you may get into like, why would you use pulse to teach somebody how to weld? Well, for me, the machine is basically doing everything that you need to do, and all you have to do is focus on your torch angle, movement, and dipping, and it kind of takes a lot of parameters out of the process and makes it very simple for someone to get up and running in maybe as short as an hour. So let me take you through the panel and show you how to set up, show you how to properly prep some tungsten, what tungsten I'm using for this project, and then we'll go weld up some test plates and see what you think. So let's get to it. First thing we'll do is use normal setup. Make sure that we're in high frequency TIG, 120 amps because we're going to be welding 120 thousandths. We'll use this switch to toggle through all of the different parameters. So you see that I had downslope set up at 0.7 of a second. It's recommended by the manual that you do not use an upslope or a downslope with the pedal. I actually like the parameters that brings into the weld, so I use that. Next thing is the pulse. We have set up on 50%, 20% width, and it's pulsating at 0.6 of a second. And that seems to work out pretty good for me. And if you want to save, you just push and hold the button and it'll save those parameters. Now I'll take you through the disassembly of the torch. What I have here is a gas lens. Removing the cup, loosening up the back, I'll pull the tungsten out. It's 3/32, 2% lanthanated. And then I'll take the gas lens out, exposing the collet. Take the torch back off, and then the insulating ring. And then everything goes right back together just the way it came apart. But I thought I would show you that. Let's take you through sharpening the tungsten. I have 3/32, 2% lanthanated tungsten here. And I've had this little Ryobi grinder for probably, 12, 15 years now. And I have it dedicated only to sharpen tungsten. And I went through a couple different wheels, and I got like a $5 Harbor Freight wheel on it. I only use this for tungsten once again, but turn it on. And you don't want to come in and sharpen it this way. You want to come in either down or up. I prefer up. And you just simply lay it in and sharpen it up. Now some people will put a little flat spot on it if they're going to do aluminum, or that's what they prefer. For myself, I prefer about 1.5 times the thickness of the tungsten, 100% sharp. And once again, I use this 3/32, everything from about 40 thousandths up to about 190 thousandths, or that could be 40 amps to 190 amps, both AC and DC, and I'm getting good results out of this tungsten. Okay, let's talk about torch angle coming into this. Basically, we want to cant our torch back about 10 to 15 degrees. And why I'm using this Sharpie is it allows you just to look at what the angle is. So if you're coming into something, you want to be 90 degrees if it's this flat plate, and you want to cant back 10 to 15 degrees so you can see your arc. What we're going to do is we're going to come in off of our test plates and we're going to establish a tack. Basically, you're going to be about 1/8 to 3/16 off of the workpiece. Come in and you're hammer down on your pedal about maybe mid pedal, and you're going to watch it wet out. As it wets out, we're going to introduce filler rod, and we'll dip the filler. Back off the pedal and let the shielding gas for the post flow shield the weld, and then we'll move to the next tack. About 1/8 of an inch in, we'll hammer down, watch it wet, and then we'll introduce our filler rod. And while I'm talking about filler, let's talk a little bit about angle of your filler coming in. You know, you want to be about maybe 20 degrees and perpendicular with your line of work, because as you establish your dip, that's going to actually be your signature. It's going to be frozen in time, especially with the pulse. So on the pulse, when we wet out, let's just say this is our weld bead. So we started here and we dipped on the high side, Now it's going to the low. Now we move to the front of the weld puddle. And as we move to the front, it's going to pulsate again, and that's going to give us this overlapping look. So then as it goes away, we'll move again, and we'll establish here and wait for the pulse. As it pulses, I'll add filler once again. Then it'll wet out a nice little round bead, and then we'll move to the front of the puddle again, and I'll wait for it to pulse. Now, if your pulsations are too slow or too quick, you can adjust that with your pulse width. You can do 1 pulse a second, 1.5, whatever you want to dial into the machine. That's what makes this machine so nice. Makes it very simple. The machine does a lot of the process for you. Now we're set up for a dry run. Want to make sure that our torch angle is about 10 to 15 degrees canted back. Our rod angle comes in about 20 degrees, and we're set up and we're making sure that we can go all the way through the full weld without stopping. Now it's time for the real deal. I'm about 1/8 of an inch off the material with the tungsten. I've pushed down about halfway on the pedal, and I'm letting the pulse do its thing. Building up a little bit of heat. I keep the torch there for the post flow. Time to repeat the process over here. And I'm not right on the edge on this. I'm back about 3/16 of an inch, not to burn it away. Let it post flow once again. Now I'll back up past my tack, and I'll start right on the edge and wash right through it. Now it's time. We got heat built up in the material. It's wetting out consistently. Now it's time to get in a nice rhythm and just work our way through the seam. I do have to say what I like about pulse is I tend to weld pretty hot and pretty quick, and this is a nice way to slow me down and get nice consistency in a small heat effective zone. Just past the 3/4 mark of this test plate, and now I'm starting to lift up on the foot pedal a little bit. As we start coming to the end of the plate, you want to taper your weld and draw it down. You don't want to blow away the edge. And I'll keep the torch there for post flow. And there we have our piece. Nice little delicate weld that has a very small heat effective zone. I could have probably ran this a little bit hotter. As a rule, we want to run about 1 amp per thousandth of metal thickness, so 120 amps for 120 thousandths metal thickness. You can see we have good coloration through here. We're not overheated, we're not gray. We got through and we laid down a very nice, precise bead. Being that I was filming around the camera, you can see that I kind of wandered off path a little bit here. But all in all, a very nice, very well uniformed width all the way throughout the weld. And it turned out really nice, and it makes it really easy. So go out and spend about 30 minutes to maybe an hour a day. I wouldn't recommend going over about an hour a day because you end up just starting to make mistakes. Just get in there, do some practice, and then maybe go in, have dinner, and think about it a little bit, come back out and do some more welding. And sooner than later, you'll end up being a champ at it. We finished up our test piece, and let's talk about a few things that may help you out a little bit. Number one thing I want to talk about is get supported and get comfortable. For myself, I take the lead. It's a water-cooled lead that is very lightweight, but I like to support it around my arm most of the time. And that way it takes all the weight off the torch body, and now I can manipulate this torch more like a scalpel and get it into little places and modulate it like I like. So get supported, get comfortable. What happens if you miss a pulse? You're set up, you're moving through, and something happens and you miss that pulse. Not a big deal. Wait for the next high side to come, or maybe it's 2 or 3. Wait for it to come and then dip and then move. Now maybe you're inside a car and you're welding up a tube, and maybe you only have enough support and rotation to do 3 or 4 pulses in the run. As you're coming to the end of your support and you're starting to lose angle and you don't think you're going to be able to manipulate it, back off the pedal, let it post flow, reestablish, get supported again, and then hammer down, and then do maybe 2, 3 more, or whatever it takes to get around the tube and get very nice fusion and a good looking strong weld. So hopefully that helps. Stay tuned for next week. I'm going to take you through the advanced AC pulse on this machine, and this is what really makes this machine shine. It's like nothing I've ever seen. It wets out the aluminum really nice, establishes a puddle, and then freezes it. So not only is it a good, sound, strong weld, it's the best appearing aluminum welds that I've gotten with any machine. So thank you for watching Garage Customs. I'm Tim Roble, and I'll catch you here next time.